Welcome back, and joining me now for a closer look at the day's markets action is Nicholas Pittaway from Sasfin Wealth. Thank you so much for your time, Nicholas. For the longest time there in today's trading session, it looked like the JSE would clock another day of gains, of course, on the record highs that we have seen. We have seen a slight pullback with the JSE relatively trading on a flat territory. But do you think maybe this could just be a breather right now after those record highs?
Sure. Zanati, great to be here. It's been quite interesting. Good old JSE.
Yeah.
After the GNU came into power, the JSE actually ran 4%. So it's like, I think the stability and the sentiment around South Africa is so good, and there's a nice bit of momentum. So there's a bit of a pullback now, but I'm just feeling, you can feel it. The volumes are picking up, and there's a really good amount of momentum behind us. But the caveat is that the gold price is also really high. So I know this is something that we always know is, if the gold price goes up, there's always something to be concerned about. But luckily for us, we've got the likes of Harmony Gold. The share's up over 62% year to date. So we've got some little winners on the JSE, luckily.
Yeah, and we actually had seen those in today's trading session actually leading the gains. But yeah, you're right. It's actually quite interesting. It's usually that there's something to worry about. But thankfully, we can capitalize on that looking at the gold miners that we have on the JSE. Just talking about something to be worried about. China kept its 1-year and 5-year loan prime rates steady today. And I'm just wondering what that signals about where they are in terms of the much needed stimulus.
Sure. So the 1-year loan, they've kept it at 3.35, and then the 5-year at 3.85. So China actually surprised the markets by cutting in July. So they started it, and it's the broad move, signaling policymakers have got some intent, to strengthen the economy. But it's a major problem. They really are needing to stimulate. They're not growing enough, and we've really seen it's a huge knock-on effect to us, especially because we are quite linked to China in many ways. And so it is a concern at this point. Yeah.
And of course, China's economy does affect commodities. Let's actually go into a commodity player that released results today, and that is Sasol. They came out with their year-end results, basically seeming that overall headwinds seem to outweigh the positives there, from a turnover reduction to headline earnings per share slumping 66%. Of course, we did see markets reacting there with the share price nose diving over 6% at some point. What was interesting for me is that I thought that from the last production update, where markets reacted positively, that they had priced in a bottoming of the bad news. Is that not the case?
So it is so interesting what's happening with Sasol, because when you speak to my colleagues as well, it's almost like they're through the kitchen sink at it. Like, they went and the impairments were brutal. So it's as you said, 57 billion net of tax impairments. Lake Charles was, the outlook was terrible with the prolonged chemical, soft chemical numbers. Then the Secunda plant, and then also the African chemicals as well. So and then also just the no dividend. So a lot of the time what these companies do is, and this is just us as stockbrokers, they'll go and when times are quite tough, they'll go and give you the worst possible news just to almost. So if you are looking for value, I know I've read some reports from Morgan Stanley and a few others. There is actually some bulls out there on the case. So for us, we aren't too chuffed about how they've been running the business, but at the same time, they could be doing this this could be potentially them just putting out the worst possible news, and that, they've set some sort of
front load everything so that markets are, prepared. All right. All right. Well, let's take a look at Avenge, because that's another company that came out with numbers today, annual results. We did see their revenue climbing. We also saw a swing from a loss to a profit. Company also coming out with the announcement that they are splitting their two businesses, McConnell Dowell and Moolmans. We did see the share price climbing 5%. Was this all around good news for investors?
I think, so Avenge is rather quite a small cap. And I think so the delisting is what I'm a little bit, I mean, it would be from what I'm reading, it seems like there might be a delisting on the JSE, which would be quite upsetting considering the GNU, considering where we're headed as a country. But, they've split it because I think it is quite tough operating in those two jurisdictions. And, they've been around for a very long time, Avenge. So they've got a proper legacy behind them. So it would be a pity to see them delist. But, there are some other exciting players like Robex and a few others that are really taking off. So we do have some other players on the JSE. But I can't comment too much because it is, I hate to say that the company is quite, it hasn't been
on your radar too much.
That's the terminology. It's a bit of a small cap, and they've still got quite a bit, so the quality isn't quite there.
All right. We'll talk about other exciting counters. What is your stock pick for today?
I think you're going to like this stock pick, Zanati. It's actually up 8% as we speak. They came out with the results. It's an international company called Palo Alto Networks. So it's all around cybersecurity, and they are the biggest in their field with a market cap of $120 billion. So it's a big player. And what's happening at the moment, we saw with COVID, everyone kind of working from home, digitizing businesses, and with that, companies are needing to be very careful because cyber attacks, and it's really, especially with AI now as well. We've actually saw, I don't know if you
with CrowdStrike,
there was a stage where Microsoft was down for a day, and people couldn't fly internationally because it was there was some sort of technical breakdown. So with the technology moving the way it is, companies needing to be a lot more IT focused, cybersecurity companies are actually they're a great, almost like an insurance company in a sense. I mean, you have to have it in your portfolio. And I think another thing was that the SEC have kind of adopted an approach where if companies have had some sort of attack or some sort of issue, they need to disclose it. So now you're starting to see companies, you're actually seeing how much of this hacking is actually taking place and all of that. So I think it's a very cool company, and I think it's one where they're covering cloud, network. They're playing with all the big guys, being Amazon, Google. So they've got really good contracts, and it's a space for the new era.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your insights today, Nicholas, on what has been moving investors' money. Much appreciated. That was Nicholas Pittaway from Sasfin Wealth.